With actions, you can take a series of steps and perform them on a file or a batch of files very, very quickly. And there's a lot of default sets of actions that you can tap into. Now, a quick note about scripts. Photoshop does support scripts such as JavaScript. However, you don't have to be a coder or developer in order to take advantage of actions, which are no-code solutions. So that's what we're going to explore next. And not just actions, but the default ones. Here we go. So I've got a file here, and I'm going to take a look at the Actions panel. You can also get there through the Window menu, Window to Actions. And by default, this default action set shows up. It's a group of different actions that we could use. And one of them here says Vignette. You'll notice in parentheses there's the word Selection. So that means before running this vignette, you should actually make a selection first. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to make a selection, how about around these trees? And I can, with my selection tool, kind of position that around a little bit here. I'll go back to my action. And my action is selected, and down at the bottom, I can play the action. It's giving me an option here. It's giving me a choice to how many items do I want to have my feather. Since this is such a high resolution, I'm going to build that up quite a bit more and click on OK. And all of a sudden, there's my vignette feature, and it creates this soft shadow around my items. Let's take a closer look by expanding this. And we can see that one of the things the action did was it made a snapshot, and then it gave us a feather. There's a modal stop here, and that modal stop, which was indicated by the entire action, is where it popped open and gave us the options to make some changes ourselves. Then there were some copies, etc. I'm going to go back into my history and simply click on the first item. You can see there's a snapshot because that was part of the action step, but it means I can always go back and rerun it. That's a good idea because a lot of times with these actions, you're going to get some features that change the effects permanently. So here's another action that we have. It's called the frame channel, 50 pixels. And that warning is just giving you, or not really a warning, but it's just telling you a note about how the frame is going to be set up. Come down here to play. And it tells me the image size must be a minimum of 100 pixels wide and tall, which it is. So we'll go ahead and continue that. And it's creating the frame for us, and then we could set that up with some other image. Let's go ahead and make our way back to revert. We're back to the first option in here. And we also have some actions that work on type. And you can see in parentheses here, there's this parentheses as type, which means that before we run the action, what we really should do is create a type layer. And so I'm going to go ahead and get my type tool here. I'll put in country, just put in some text. Could move it around a little bit. And I want to make sure that's the active layer. And then I'll go ahead and run the action. And it creates this shadow effect, kind of an interesting reverse shadow. You can see some of their options. So some of them have this option for selection, some have type, and some of them just play as they are. I'm going to press F12. That will revert my file back to when I first saved, or when I last saved it. There's some really handy ones like the clipping path, the sepia tones, the quadrant colors. Let's try this one for quadrant colors. That's something I used to try to do without using actions, and it took a lot of work, and I'm glad to see there's an easy step that does that for me, F12. Now these are some defaults, and they're really just designed to give you an idea of different types of actions, but if you go to the flyout menu, you can see there's even more libraries of actions. So we have commands and frames, image effects, etc. And so if you're really interested in doing something like a texturing, you could load that set, and these are all different types of actions that help you create textures. For example, here's one for bricks. Now it's not really necessarily for my particular image, but it would be a good one if I wanted to create a brick background. And it looks like it's still playing. But there's my brick background, and I could even use that to, let me change that. I could even use that with some type of effect in there as well. Now, after you play these actions, we can close the file. I won't save it. But I want you to notice that the actions are stored with the program. They're not stored with a particular file. So as you start working on these actions, you're going to see all kinds of interesting things. Incidentally, if you end up upgrading your Photoshop, it's possible that you might have actions that were stored in a previous version, like we do here, and Photoshop will even import those actions for you. And so you would have some different settings in there. Now, when you create your actions, you can, or if you want to, you can load your actions and replace them. There's also a website, the Photoshop Exchange, which is easy to find through a search engine. And on there, you can upload or access actions that other people in the Photoshop community are creating and sharing with others. But that gives you a quick demo of some of the default actions that you can use in Photoshop. Well, now we're going to do a pop quiz. Before running the vignette action, as indicated by a note in parentheses, what step should be made first? A. Save the file. B. Reset the default actions. C. Make a selection. D. Revert the file. The answer is C. Make a selection.